Hey gang, it's Leon. Today I got me a super unique product that has never happened on this channel before. I was so excited about this product, I actually had to unbox it just so that I can play around with it before I talk to you guys. The product that I'm talking about is a retro handheld that pretty much runs every single emulator that you can think of. This product right here beats out every single one of my expectations that I've had for something like this. When I saw this thing on Amazon, I really didn't have a lot of faith in it, I guess I should say. So that's why I had to unbox it right away when I got it and test it out. So the past couple of days, I have been testing this thing out. I can confidently come back and tell you what you can expect from this thing right out of the box. Okay, let's get right into it. So first off, this right here, the screen is fantastic. It's not one of those low quality screen that you would think you'll get with something this small. Surprisingly, this thing is actually very bright. Now from a screen standpoint, you can actually plug a HDMI cord to this and connect it to any of your monitor that you have. And it's beautiful. I've tried it out with an external monitor, a tiny external monitor that I have, and it's beautiful on the screen. While using an external monitor, you can actually use this as a remote. And so pretty much you're tethered to a monitor and you just play off of it. With remote, I've tried it out with two different remote here. These are from 8BitDo. They are Bluetooth remotes that I actually use on my Nintendo Switch, PC, things like that. Now, here's the funky part, okay? This is the 8BitDo Pro 2. I tried this thing out. It seemed to work very well on the menu screen, but then once I get into the game, after I press the start button to play the game, for some reason it didn't work at all. Not sure why it happens on this controller, but then I went over to this controller right here, did the same setup, and it works just fine. So in case you guys are wondering if these controller works or not, for some reason it's a hit and miss. This one right here works for me, but this one didn't work. And both are Bluetooth. I connect the Bluetooth to this thing and it works just fine. By the way, connecting a Bluetooth controller to this device, super easy. There's literally a button on there that says connect Bluetooth controller. That's all you do. It actually search for all the Bluetooth controller and it automatically connects it. You didn't even have to say, yes, connect to that controller. I was very surprised that you can actually connect a Bluetooth controller to this thing. It's fantastic. Blows my mind how easy it was on, a device this small that has Bluetooth controller connection. Now you're probably wondering, I have a joystick. Can I plug this thing into a joystick? Yes, you can, but there's a caveat to that. I have a USB-A joystick controller that I plug to my PC back here. Well, there's no USB-A port on this thing at all. There is a port, a USB-C port, that's dedicated to controllers. So just an FYI on that, if you have a joystick, you might need a converter in order for you to use it on here. Now, I have not tested out any USB-C joystick controller to it, but I will do that soon. But anyhow, I've been using this thing right here and it works perfectly fine. No lag whatsoever. Now for some of you that just really don't want to mess with emulators, you just want a retro machine, boot it up and play it, I can tell you, I feel your pain, because that was the one thing that scared me away from this machine for a while now. But after I've played with this, I can tell you that it is super easy for beginners. You don't have to know about emulators. You don't have to know about RetroArch. I didn't know anything about it at all. All I had was a few ROMs and I threw it on there and it works just fine. Now let's talk about the ROMs and the software that comes with it. There are two memory cards that comes with this machine. This is one of them right here. This is a 16 gig. I have no idea what the brand is, but as soon as I got it, the emulators and a couple of games were installed on this memory card right here. And then there is a 64 gig memory card also that's included. And on that, there's all these games on there, the 4,000 games that they mentioned. I played around with it for a little bit. Actually pretty impressed. They were actually real name brand games. So I was actually pretty impressed. But what I did was I swapped it all out to my own memory card because obviously if you look at this right here, I'm not sure if I can trust this thing to last very long. So I did buy my own memory card, swap it all out, transfer all the data over, and use my own memory cards on here. There are 2 card slots. One is for the operating system of, like the Linux operating system, the Android, and also all the emulators that you have. And you can install some games on there too, but it's pretty limited. But then there's a second slot where that's where you're gonna install all of your games. That's the slot that I have a 512 gig card on right here. That's the card right there that I have all my games on. Yeah, I actually got a 512 card just so that I can use it on this thing. By the way, if you guys are wondering, will a 512 fit all of your game? Now, depending on what you mean by all your game libraries, here's what I have on my 512, and it's actually not enough room. I have most of my Dreamcast games that I want on there that work. I have pretty much all the Super NES, all of the Genesis games. I didn't do any kind of Game Boy and stuff like that. I have all of the Neo Geo game as well on there. And then on top of that, I have all of my MAME games on there, MAME, the arcade machine. I have all of those on there as well, and it all fits. I was disappointed I couldn't load all of my Dreamcast games on there. That was the only disappointment because 512 just simply was not enough. Anyway, so that's what all the things that you can fit on there. Right now I have about 12 to 13,000 worth of games on this thing, mainly because of the MAME, M-A-M-E, the arcade machine. So hopefully that explains some of the ROMs and things like that, how much you can fit on there. Now let's talk about the controllers real quick. The reason why I picked this machine over some of the other ones was that this machine right here actually has analog sticks on there. The analog sticks are great because actually the PlayStation 1 emulator is actually on here as well. So you can actually load PlayStation games on here. I tried out, the first game that I tried out on this machine was Gran Turismo. It works. It actually works smooth. Very smooth. Gran Turismo is very smooth on here for the PlayStation 1. Just in case if you guys are wondering if it works or not. Yes, it does. It works. Anyway, that's the reason why I picked this device over some of the other retro devices, is because it has 2 analog sticks so that you can actually play PlayStation 1 stuff. Now let's talk about the software. The version that I have can dual boot to Android and to Linux. Linux is the preferred one because it actually loads up all my emulators correctly. Android is a little finicky. This thing actually is a touch screen, by the way, so that you can actually use your Android on here. Yes, it boots up into Android and you can actually use the screen and tap the screen and stuff like that. It actually works, yeah. There's actually a vibrate function on here as well. I felt it when I turn off the device, where it pops up, it says, hey, do you want to turn off the device? It actually vibrates in here as well. Not sure how they fit all that in here, but there is. Now, do I recommend the dual boot one or the single boot? The way this one right here, you can boot into Android. I don't think I would recommend the dual boot one after using it for a while. Here's the reason why. It's a little finicky. There's a power button on here. When I hold that button to turn it on, sometime it would boot into Android, which I didn't want. I just wanted to boot straight into, the emulator so that I can play the games, right? I have no use for the Android version of it. So probably save yourself some money and get the non-dual boot one. Just an FYI, I believe it's the VS version. This is the V version. So that's what I would say. Get the VS version so that it's not constantly dual booting into things that you don't need it to do. From a software standpoint, I felt like the emulator screen works really well. The menu is very intuitive. You flip through the different emulators. There's even favorites and the recent games that you play. They all work very well. You will have to learn some of the button combination. Like for instance, you got to hold down function and then press combination of up, down, left, right, or whatever, in order for it to save the states that you're in the game. So I recommend you guys reading up on that. I just discovered it by playing around with it. In terms of how complicated the menus are, it's actually pretty simple. But there is an advanced edition in my mind that people that wants to tweak this thing up even more can actually do. I'm really happy about that. I've only learned maybe like 10% of this. I feel like there's a lot more to this little device than I had imagined. Now, battery life. Let's talk about the battery life real quick. I actually was playing a pretty heavy graphic game, in my opinion. Gran Turismo, Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, things like that. And I was playing it for like 30 minutes to an hour. The battery didn't get drained at all. I mean, it was down to like 90%, 87% or something like that. After an hour, I felt like the battery lasts pretty long. Every time I look over it, I felt like the battery was sufficient. I didn't have to charge it at all. Since we're on the charging piece of it, for some reason, this port right here is a little bit weird. I have to say, it's a bit weird. Some reason when I plug it in, this light right here would turn on to tell me if it's charging or not. Sometimes it wouldn't turn on to tell me that it's charging. It's kind of weird. And then with it plugged in, I would turn on the power button using the power button right here. It would boot into Android because it was plugged in. It was kind of weird like that. There's a glitch in there somewhere that I can't really figure out, but it has to do with this charging port right here, whether it's plugged in or not. So I would have to unplug it, then turn on the power with the power button. Then that's when it'll boot into Linux. It's kind of weird that way. Yeah, I don't know why, but it'll happen to you. Just an FYI. It's gonna happen to you. Now let's talk about the audio. Can you use like a Bluetooth headphones on this thing, even though it has Bluetooth functionality to it? I have not been able to figure that out, if you can use a Bluetooth headphones on this or not. For some reason, there isn't an option. Even though it has Bluetooth in here, I can't figure out how to connect a Bluetooth headphones to this. The only option that I have is to plug in a 3.5mm jack into here, which by the way, it plays very nicely on here. So yeah, that's what I've been doing right there. Most of the games that I've tried out on this thing, guys, it has been running at 60 frames per second. You can actually, like, there's an option where you can press the function button to display the frame rates on each game, and it works. And it stayed at 60 on most of the games that I played. All right, guys, so that's it right there. That's the quick look of this retro handheld that I just got here. Totally love it. I blew my expectation out of the water after just 3 days of messing around with it. Blew me away. I might do a more update video on this, mainly because there's so much more that I can do with this little machine. So look out for that, and I will see you in the next episode.